Welcome back to another episode of Survivor Worldwide on Reality Pop. We've got a great guest here with us today, a Survivor South Africa alum, and someone who is at the moment quite busy and quite active with this season because she's doing something on Inside Survivor where she's taking on her former castmate, Jack Berger, as well. It's Meryl. Meryl, how are you doing?
Hi, Chris and Riley. Thank you for having me. I am good under the circumstances in South Africa, but I'm really, really happy to be here and happy to be part of the community. I sometimes feel like I'm in a cult, but I'm very happy to be in the Survivor cult. Like, I'm glad to be here. So
100%. It's an interesting community. Like I've said a few times, like I was never really that active online when it came to Survivor at all. Like I used to be like a closet Survivor fanatic. And then this year, since I started doing the podcast, now I'm a lot more active online and I can really see how intense it is out there and how much people really care about this show. And it's a great community to be a part of. And we're really excited to have you on the show to talk about this season, because I think it's always great to have previous castmates on here that could give us some really valuable insights. But before we get into the show, I also want to welcome my co-host Riley to the show. Riley, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks, Chris. I'm so excited that we're finally at the merge. We're starting to see things shaking up in this season of Immunity Island. I'm loving it so far. And yeah, another great episode and a massive blindside. I don't think Marisha saw that come in at all.
No, I felt like this was by far the best episode we've seen, and I've been really enjoying the whole season. I'm very proud to be South African when we put these great Survivor shows out there for the world to enjoy, because we know that it's become an international phenomenon with a lot of people from different countries. It's currently airing in Australia via 10 Play, as they've also got their own season Australian Survivor playing at the moment. So it's a bit of Survivor overload over in Australia at the moment, and I know that there's a lot of people internationally that follow this season quite closely. Now, Meryl, what has been your general consensus of the season so far?
it's a bit like the cycles of the moon. There's no generalness to it at all. At first, when I saw the cast, I was like, I don't care for these people, because how dare they come into my home and, like a little bit of like sibling jealousy. Like,
yes,
that's how it started off for me. And they're just so pretty. They're just gorgeous looking people, and they're so prepared to play. And that kind of caught me off guard. I think that is like where the jealousy also started. It's just that they're just playing so well. And I'm sad that I didn't play that well. Like, why didn't I think of that? So they are phenomenal. The production value, the editing, I'm really, really enjoying the season now that I've gotten over my jealousy. Very, very much. Yeah, they're playing like it's the latest Survivor. Where's my American? I haven't had my coffee this morning yet.
The latest US version.
Yeah, yes. In terms of just like how ready they are. Like, it's not like, oh wow, I've made it onto Survivor and this is an amazing experience. No, they're feet down, foot forward, and ready to play and make moves. So it's really cool to watch.
Now, Riley, I've been pretty high on Tyson for the last 3 episodes in a row, and I've nominated him for 3 episodes in a row as my player of the week, and I feel justified coming into this podcast because Tyson's going to continue. He's almost like the Mike Tyson of Survivor, coming in here and delivering knockout blows, and he's had a really good episode. And are you eating your words a little bit now in regards to Tyson making some of those moves pre-merge to keep some of his Vuna members in the game coming into the merge? Because it looks like it's almost like I knew what was going to happen, but I didn't. And he's playing a really good game at this point.
Yeah, there was so much strategy, and it was also great just to see that this episode was so unpredictable. And I think Tyson playing that idol this episode, really shaking things up a lot. Lots of moving parts in this episode that made it so unpredictable. He's playing a great game. Obviously, reuniting with people like Anesu and having Kieran and Wilder on their side as well. So it's nice to actually see that in this episode, at least, all those fractures that existed within the former Vuna tribe have been put aside, and Wilder and Santoni are now working together like they were best friends from the very start. So it's great to see that they have that unity, and hopefully it goes toward the end, and we actually see these guys pick up and carry this dominance through to the rest of the game, because they've got momentum now and they just got to carry it.
Yeah, so Meryl, Warda is someone that we've been very hard on sometimes because we felt like she was playing very emotional and she was like creating these vendettas after Carla because she was very close to Carla. When she was voted out, she wanted to get revenge against Santoni, wanted to get revenge against Chappies and Anella. And I was very fearful and I thought to myself, how will Warda work with Chappies moving forward? How will she work with Santoni moving forward? How difficult is it when you're out on the island there playing the game when you've got this sort of vendetta that's being created between you and other players in the game? How difficult is it to put that aside and to try and work with people that potentially isn't in your corner in the game?
Yeah, I think it shows him amazing resilience with regard to gameplay because the elements and everything already bring out the worst in you, and to be able to to set that reset button with Chappies and I'm quite surprised by her. I'm also surprised that she was quite quiet this tribal council. And I love the story arc that we're seeing of her. In the beginning she was quite quiet, but the fact that she's been able to put her vendettas aside is quite remarkable.
I've been very impressed with Warda this episode to do that, and I kind of thought that there was no way that she was going to be able to play nice, especially with Chappies, because I really felt like throughout this whole game she's had such a massive target on Chappies, and obviously it's the right move here because it does end up with their alliance sort of getting the upper hand. But Riley, we early in the episode here get a really cool scene on the Vuna tribe with Marisha finding the location of the hidden immunity idol, and she goes to get Renier to help her in this specific instance, and then it ends up that Renier keeps the idol even though Marisha was the one who found it and she was the one who got it there. What did you think of this little dynamic between Marisha and Renier this early on in the episode?
Well, I think it just demonstrated how strong that alliance was. We haven't really seen Marisha and Renier have too many moments on screen together. More so we've seen Marisha with Nicole and Renier with Amy. So to see that they actually had that level of rapport, I think it spoke to how strong that Zamba alliance really was. And how thick that tribal blood ran within them. Obviously, Renier taking the idol from Marisha, I'm sure Marisha was very, very pissed off. And I know she's a very competitive person as well. So, for Renier to have the idol, she obviously was a little bit annoyed there. But, I mean, in the end, I think the tribal blood that ran so strong between the old Zamba members, Marisha seemed fine with it. Obviously, in the end, it was more of a tribal idol. But I'm sure after this episode, Marisha probably was wishing that she hadn't told Renier about the idol and had kept it for herself.
100%. Now, Meryl, as someone that also found an idol on your season of the Survivor, did you get a little bit of flashbacks here in the episode as they started letting everybody know about the fact that they had an idol, and before you know it, everybody on the island knew about the idol? How was that sort of watching that on TV, and what would your advice be to future Survivor players around the idol in the future and in regards to sharing that information?
Yeah, don't share the information. Don't tell people about any advantages you may have. Don't. It's telling one person is already one too many. And I mean, we saw how Tyson's news spread. We saw how it's just one too many. So and things change so quickly. Like you see, Chappies and Warda and Anela. And now Chappies and Warda working together again. So and even in Santa, I think it backfired for her a little bit because initially she wasn't doing too well with Tyson, and she told everyone, and then afterwards, she's part of their lines, and she has been playing this kind of fluid in and out kind of game. You're not sure who she's properly aligned to except Chappies. So don't tell people about your idol. Don't.
You just never know what the motivations of other people are. And the problem is that as soon as, in Survivor, to have an idol is obviously a very strong tool that you can build very strong relationships, and you can create alliances like Rob Bentelli in your season did really successfully on his side. But the hindsight, or the other side to that, is that, information is also a form of currency in the game. And that if you're someone that can provide a little bit of information to someone else, then they might trust you more because of the fact that you know where the idol is, and you tell someone else else, hey, Meryl's got that idol. So it's a very difficult one. I know, Riley, you're quite hot on being able to share that information as a way to build relationships in the future as well. So I don't know how you felt about this early on, but it was really interesting to see all this information leaking across the board, who had the advantage, who had the idols on both sides. It felt like everybody knew going into that idol. They knew who had the ammunition going into that tribal council.
Yeah, it was quite bizarre because with Santoni and Wilder really playing that double agent role, everyone seemed to know where every advantage was. They just didn't know who was going to play it and for whom. Obviously, they thought that, Chappies was completely out of the loop and Santoni was on their side, which is great social play by Santoni to have them trust her so much. And Wilder as well really integrated herself well with the tribe and really played off that she was a little bit annoyed with Chappies there. So I think it was great social play by both Santoni and Wilder. I give them massive props for what they did in terms of being that double agent. I do worry, though. I mean, obviously, Santoni, it's known now that she can't really be trusted and she doesn't really, have any loyalties toward anyone other than Chappies. So for her, it probably won't hurt her game as much. But with Wilder, I do worry whether that sort of crossing paths and going back and forth between all these different people like your Sean's and Amy's, and then obviously sticking strong with Vuna, whether that will backfire for her and she won't have that opportunities to work with the Zumba members. So it's going to be interesting to see what the repercussions of this are in the next episode. And obviously in the next episode as well, we'll have 2 tribal councils. So it's really going to be interesting to see, how fluid those relationships are. And maybe actually talking to all those different people actually works in Santoni and Wilder's benefits. We'll just have to wait and see.
100%. And one of the things that I found really interesting, sort of bringing up Chappies a few times there, is that there was this Frankenbite that they had on the actual confessional where he talked about the fact that he made the merge and, they've now let the shark into the waters and he's just going to, have all the fish guts around and they should never have gotten him into that point of the game. And then there's this bit that just sounded completely off where he said, and he never had to use his diplomatic immunity. So I was really afraid watching the episode because Meryl, Riley will know that I'm a big Chappies fan. I love the characters. I love the people that make me feel either a lot of enjoyment or a lot of hatred towards them. And in this case, I enjoy watching the energy that someone like Chappies brings to the show. I was really nervous for him because it sounded like something that he would have said while he was voted out. So I thought he was gone and they got him to record that little bit because it sounded off. And me as being a super fan, I noticed that. I don't know if anybody else noticed it, but I definitely did when I was listening to it. Chappies coming into this merge, he's like a bull in a china shop and he just goes and looks for the idol everywhere. He's got no filter about it. And that's going to be a bit of a theme going throughout the episode as well, where we're going to see it as well. What was that like to see on the screen, Meryl? And how would you have reacted playing the game with someone like a Chappies that just moves and has got that much energy as well?
Chappies is really interesting when he's speaking at camp. He sounds a certain way. And then when he's doing his confessionals, he's very animated. His accent changes. So there's very much an awareness that there is someone on the other side of that camera. There is someone. There are people that he's communicating to. And I remember Jock was also being a super fan himself. Chappies is also a super fan. The way he spoke, it made us aware that he was playing a game for the viewers and not. And it annoyed me actually. I was just like, I don't know if I can trust you sitting next to me here, because as soon as Nico asks you to say something, it's like there's another character that emerges. And so for me, it was quite annoying, and I can think that it would be annoying for me on screen as like this kind of meerkatting. And for the camera, I'm just like, we're here now, let's stay in this moment. So initially I did enjoy him. I thought it was quite geeky. And now I don't know. I think of him as just a big threat on the game, and he's already a favorite to everyone else. And I think the fact that that we still know about his diplomatic and Tyson knows about it. We found out like in episode 2 that Pinty told Tyson, and I think that is going to come in somewhere into the story. So he just seems to be this cat with 9 lives that. His name comes up every time, and yet he never leaves. He doesn't have like this massive, protection, shield of an alliance. He just is kind of on his own with maybe another number 2, and he just never gets voted out. So I'm quite impressed with his gameplay. I can say actually a lot about Chappies. He reminds me of Tony in season 40 as well. So whenever he's in a strong position, he does something that like minimizes his threat level. So he strips his clothes and he runs off into the ocean, and he's like, and it's so unpredictable, but it's so planned. Like it's well thought out, and it seems like, you know, just these, Chappies has just gone bonkers again. But I think a lot of his things are so well planned and well thought of way before he even arrived into the game. So well done to him.
Yeah, and Chappies he's had a very interesting edit throughout the show, because we hear other people talk about the target on him and the fact that they are annoyed with having them around camp. But as a viewer, we don't see that on the TV show. The edit shows us more of the positive sides to Chappies, the fact that he's a hero. He goes in there and saves 2 of his tribe mates in the water, goes back and collects 3 of the puzzle pieces himself. Clearly, he's a big fan of Tony and Luke Toki and those guys, because, you know, he finds his own spy shack, and he actually even calls it a spy nest, which is what Tony called it, you know, a natural spy shack. And he's a showman. You can tell that he knows what will make good TV, as someone that has watched the show a lot. And I can certainly understand how that would be very annoying when you see the cameras come closer and someone suddenly talks differently to you versus how they would be if the camera's not there. And I've heard from other Survivor players in the past that makes you a big target, because people know you're going to be the star of the show if you're that way. Or maybe Nico asks you more questions, so they're like, oh, he must be Nico's favorite because Nico's getting from him what he wants for the show, for instance. And those are the extra things that we as viewers maybe don't get while watching the show. But Riley, it's exciting seeing Chappies here sort of do his work in this episode. You know, you can talk a little bit about him walking around looking for things at the merge feast, having zero filter, like Renier says. You know, he's not very subtle about it, and he still ends up missing the little note that is out there as well underneath where the drinks is. So it's quite interesting, because he's got so much energy. I feel like he doesn't have as much focus sometimes, Riley.
Yeah, it was just so much fun just to see him being so blatant in how he's looking for the idol clue. And honestly, I think at that point, it almost does downplay your threat level a little bit, just to see you being this absolute goofball. Because then the question comes into play, does he actually have the idol? Is he just playing it up for all of us at camp? But I was honestly surprised that no one found that little idol clue there at the drink stand. I mean, Chappies went to fill up his wine glass maybe 4 or 5 times. He was, you know, absolutely drunk on power at that point. So I'm surprised he didn't find it. I thought at a time there, Amy, it looked like she pointed out toward the wine station to Sean, and I thought at that point they might find the clue there. But obviously, it didn't come into play in the end. No one ended up finding it, which was a little bit disappointing to see. But I think with Chappies, a massive move he made there was, you know, telling Wider about the family visit, the family video rather, and how they got this reward, and saying, you know, just keep in mind that your family are out there thinking of you. It's something that can show, you know, you got faith in the game. And I think they did build a little bit of a bridge between the two. But at the same time, it probably pissed off Wider as well a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've got respect for Warda not losing it on Chappies a little bit there, because I think I would have been pretty annoyed. And I think Chappies came from a good place, but I do feel like sometimes, like Santoni says, he puts his foot in his mouth and he just socially says the wrong things in the wrong times. And I don't think he's got any malice within him, and he wants to do it from a bad place. It's just the way he's coming across, because he wanted to sort of motivate her, but it could have very easily had the opposite effect on her as well. And then the other part of this merge feast that was quite interesting as well was seeing Santoni work with Marisha and going over to the girls saying, okay, I need to get in there. I don't like the 3 blondes sitting together, and trying to break in there, and then talking to Marissa telling her, don't worry, you're probably safe for at least 4 votes. But we by now know, Meryl, that Santoni is not the kind of person that likes to be dragged along or feel like she's someone's minion or the little sister, like she always says, that's on the side here. And Santoni's going to start forming a little bit of resentment here. Potentially she's getting a new nemesis. She already has Nicole as a nemesis, but Marisha is sort of jumping that to the #1 spot for this episode as well. So what have you thought of Santoni so far? I know you touched on her a little bit earlier on in the episode as well.
Yeah, she has actually been in control of a lot of the votes. In was it Vuna Zamba 2.0?
Yeah, Zamba 2.0.
And that no one has really caught on. I think her in her rainbow t-shirts and in her vibrant personality, I think people totally downplay her threat level. And I think only Warda's onto her and maybe Amy, but the rest kind of are asleep concerning Santoni. I mean, a lot of viewers never thought that she would even make it into Merge or past the first few episodes, just because of her physique and because everyone out there is so strong and so mean looking and so aggressive. But she's playing just the best game. And I think the way she communicates to the audience as well, you feel like you are a friend and she's going to tell you a little story because if she wants to say something, she like whispers and then she talks out again. And so you always feel like you're in the story with her and you're rooting for her because she is a kind of underdog in the game. So I think that she will get far. I think if she makes it past the first couple of votes here, there'll be other bigger physical threats. I always think that there'll be physical threats. I thought that on my season as well. And then I was also the first boot. So who knows? But and she's played double agent a few times. It's like the Sarah in Game Changers as well. And she did it in her first season. She plays double agent, and people kind of know, but they're not threatened by it. Like she's not really going to do anything, but she's exchanging information, and no one seems the wiser. So well done. Yeah, she's playing a phenomenal game.
And it's interesting watching her as well, Riley, because if you think about this, she's been playing a bit of a sloppy game in certain points as well, because people know that she's talking all the time and that she's leaking information. Even Tyson here coming into the merge, he mentions that only his alliance in Kiran, Warda, and Santoni knows about his idol, but he is worried about Santoni being one of those people because she could potentially go around and tell other people about it. And we do see that she ends up going on a bit of a trip here, talking to Chappies, talking to Marisha. Pretty much, I don't know who she didn't talk to at the merge. Yeah. She let a lot of people know about Tyson's idol, which is very, very dangerous play, but it kind of lowered people's guard on Santoni because they thought, okay, she's bringing information to us. We could probably trust her to vote with us. And therefore, they started giving her too much information about where their vote was going to go. It's very interesting. Do you think that Santoni can ride this wave out for a lot longer, playing such a sloppy but still yet effective game at times? And I say sloppy, but I really, if Santoni listens to it, I really have enjoyed Santoni watching your game. You're right up there with Chappies for me this season as one of the people that I enjoy watching the most. And I hope you go far. But Riley, do you think that this is a game plan that's going to take her quite deep in the game at the moment?
Well, her game's been such a roller coaster from the start. I mean, Chris and I, we completely discounted her at the beginning of the season. Yep. But obviously, she was sent to Immunity Island a couple of times, then got that alliance there with Chappies, and that's really, being strong for her. She was the flip-flop vote for most of the pre-merge, and now she's sort of in the same position now that the merge has come. And I actually quite like Santoni's position at the merge because she really could have gone either side. It seemed that, she was a little bit disfranchised by her relationship with Tyson. But then again, the old Vuna tribe was still wanting to keep her in that plan. So I'm surprised that she actually went with Vuna in the end, didn't flip completely to the Zumba tribe. But I suppose a little bit of that was she recognized that Marisha and Nicole and Amy were such a tight-knit group that she ultimately couldn't trust them. And she didn't want to be, number 7 in that alliance when she could be, number 6 in Vuna or potentially go all the way with Chappies and completely script. So I've actually got high hopes for Santoni. I think at the start of the season, I was very down on her. I didn't think she'd go far at all in the game. But at the moment, it's looking like she's got those relationships with almost everyone. And as Meryl mentioned there, her rainbow tie-dye shirt really does downplay her threat level a little bit, which is honestly bizarre to think about. But I don't think people are looking at her as a legitimate game player at all at this point. But if she starts to, carry that momentum through the merge and sort of sit in the middle and maintain her position as someone that can go either side but still be trusted by both sides, regardless of where she votes, she does have a lot of upside at this point.
So we've got PT Pilario here in the chat saying that Santoni is exactly the kind of player that Teresa wished to be. And I think that early on in our draft picks for the season, we had Teresa, Riley had Teresa really high. I think it might have been your second or third female pick for the season. And you sort of pointed out that she could be like a Sari or a Sandra or someone like that. At certain points, I've actually early in the season mentioned that Santoni reminds me of Sandra in the sense that it's anyone but me. And I'm happy to move wherever the votes will take me as long as I'm not the person that's going to get voted out. But there's also been this great relationship between Santoni and Chappies, which has been kind of wholesome to see because they're both, and like especially Chappies being the outcast, Santoni has still stayed pretty loyal to Chappies throughout this episode. And it's quite quite interesting because in this episode we see Marisha being very open about that information that Chappies is going to be the target, and she tells Santoni that Chappies will be the first target here, and it'll be a couple of votes before we get to you, basically. And Santoni calls Marisha Windgat, which for those people that are international, that means that she's a bit arrogant or cocky, and saying that the votes will go her way for so long. And she then goes back to Tyson, and this is where things start getting real interesting, Meryl, because Tyson, I'm really impressed by him. I've been impressed by him as a game player now for the last 3 or so episodes. I've been slowly but surely seeing Tyson get more and more confident in the way that he plays the game, and he stays very calm at this point. A lot of other people, I think that if they knew that everybody knew that he had an idol, would freak out. I mean, you've been in that position before where you found out that people may know about your idol, so you would know how much anxiety that would bring to you. But Tyson has a very cool and level head here, and he says now it becomes, how do we play the idol correctly to ensure that we get someone on their side to go home before we go home? What have you thought about Tyson and his ability to stay calm here in this specific scenario? And can you talk us through maybe the feelings that you feel when you find out somebody might know you're holding on to something as powerful as an idol in the game?
I said from the beginning, and I'll stick to my guns until it happens, that Tyson is my winner pick. Just the way his story is being crafted and the things that he says alludes to him getting to the end. Like, I'm my own number one. I don't want to be with these people until I'm my own. Like in the first 3-4 episodes, if you just listen to the things that he says, for me it was just an casting forth. This is going to happen. So I'm a massive Tyson fan. And the fact that they have actually been in the minority for so long, he's got Kieran, who's just a master strategist. I mean, he's like up in the air on a pole for 3.5 hours, and he devises this plan quickly. And they all, I think Anesu would have taken that challenge. And I think she realizes as well, she's also playing the double agent. But Tyson is crafty, he's calm, he's had 2 idols now and he played them correctly. And with Kieran on his side, it makes such a fantastic duo. Just having the idol, and Santoni said it, I think, in about when she played her idol, she had an opportunity to have 3 idols in the game. Can we just have a moment? 3 before merge. What?
Yes.
And she says the idol is sometimes a curse. And I didn't have the opportunity to be quiet and to that only I know about the idol by the time we went to that tribal. Everyone knew, and I knew that they were trying to get me to play it. But I think that it is kind of like a curse if people know it, because they use it against you. And there's all these factions, even within your alliance. You think, like, what is going to happen and how do you trust these people completely? So I'm 4 idols in the game. It's just a terrifying place. It's like, when you pass passport control, if you take an international flight, and you give them your passport, and you know that there's nothing wrong with me. Like, I don't have anything on me. I'm not smuggling into the country. But there's those few seconds of doubt. That feeling carries on throughout the game and through the whole tribal council. It's just like, oh my word, I have this. So idols, man, but he's able to stay calm and collected and able to trust the people around him. So yeah.
It is impressive to see, and I wonder, one of the things, because Tyson, like prior to the season starting, I was not that high on him coming into it. Riley wasn't that high on him coming into it. We thought he wasn't going to go as far as he was going to go because he came across as someone that wasn't a fan of the show. He said he wanted to be on Survivor because it's the biggest production in South Africa, and he wanted to get into TV production and that kind of thing. So I thought he was there for those types of reasons. But I think him not being the biggest fan of Survivor is actually his strength, just like it was Rob's strength going into the previous season, because they haven't seen how things can go wrong. So I think for Tyson to play the moves that he played played this episode to be the one that gets selected to go to Immunity Island, to say, I'm going to give up my safety, I'm going to go back. That takes massive kahunas to be able to do that. You go back into tribal council, you give your safety away, and you give your idol to another person that you think the votes are going to be on. You in your mind, you're hoping everything is going to work out the way that it's going to work out. But Marisha and Renier and that side, they had their plan as well. They thought things were going to work out their way, and it didn't. So it shows you it very easily could have gone the other way. I think a lot of this, Riley, comes into play that Tyson probably hasn't seen things go wrong, and it gives him a little bit more freedom to be creative and play a little bit more off the cuff compared to some of the super fans that have played the show in the past, who sometimes get afraid of what they've seen on the show happen in previous seasons.
Yeah, and you've seen what happened with Jark in Meryl's season, and obviously Dino on this season. I think the super fans just tend to overthink things a lot, and they always think about the consequences of the moves and the pros and cons of every little move in the game. Whereas I think Tyson's playing a very good game where he's sort of just sitting back and letting the game take where it goes, and playing it day by day as opposed to looking long term into the game, which I think is going to benefit him down the line. And obviously he has that strong alliance there with Karan. So I think he's got a strong alliance around him. And I think now he's learned, how to play the game in terms of, getting all these advantages. He seems to have a good read on everyone socially, which I think is probably his best angle in the game is his social cues and how he reads other people. So I think at a poker table, Tyson's got to be a great player because he knows where the votes are going at all times and who the other tribe are going to play the idol for. Obviously, in this episode, he played the idol correctly on Chappies. So I think he recognizes what everyone's threat level is within the tribe, which is really, working in his favor, having this strong alliance and this ability to read others.
Now, there's one other player in the game that, and I agree with you, Meryl, by the way, that Tyson, for me, he is the person I think is going to win this season. I think myself and Riley have been putting Tyson as one of those people. We thought, depending on where the alliances are going to go, it's either going to be Tyson or it's going to be Renier. They seem to be the two that's the most likely to be the players that are going to win the show. But there's been another player that, for me, I'm not willing to count out as of yet, and that I'm still not willing to count out as of yet at this point, because she just gets enough airtime still to be a contender, and she was my preseason favorite to win the show before the show even started, and that's Anesu. I still think Anesu has got a chance to make it to the end, and I think that Anesu played a pretty big game this episode because she was with that tribe in the Vuna 3.0 or the original Zamba tribe for quite a long time, so they trusted her a lot with these votes. And we see a scene here with Sean and Anesu, which I found very interesting, walking on the beach and talking about who's got what advantages and where they are. And Sean is another person we haven't seen a lot of. He says he's been playing the game since day one. I'm really sad that we haven't been able to see it, and I know that he has played the game. It's just the edit hasn't shown us what he's done up until this point. So I'm a little bit fearful for him because he's starting to get some airtime now. That normally means 2 or 3 episodes in, you could be the person that's next to go. But Anesu, for me, is another person. Before they go to this specific immunity challenge and before Kiran decides that Tyson is the one that needs to go to Immunity Island, she talks to Santoni about the fact that if Chappies wins, she's going to ask Chappies to let her be the person to go to Immunity Island so she can come back and vote with them. So she also had that plan that Kiran had. So she's also a very, very smart girl. She's very onto it. Meryl, what do you think of Anesu? Do you think that I'm completely on the wrong thing here, or do you think Anesu could still be a dark horse at the moment in the show, someone that potentially could go all the way?
She has also, from the beginning, just caught my eye. I think her story is very intriguing. This medical doctor turned yogi and vegan and loves the chickens. That it almost seems easy. It's like Renier's game is also like it unfolds really easily, and the decisions that she makes and the relationships that she has. I mean, we know that she is a Vuna OG, but as the viewers, because we've been told that. But the people on the island with her have no idea because her loyalties haven't been tested and weighed. And even in this vote, she didn't vote with him. And we're not seeing enough of that because maybe that's not the focus of the story right now. But that takes incredible poise and social skills to be able to do that. And I think just she's for me even more calm than, we spoke about Tyson's calm. She's really, really calm, even when she talks to her players and her fellow castaways, when she's thinking of a plan. when she voted Pinty off, I mean, we saw that was a very difficult vote for her to do, but she did it calmly. And this was the strategy forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of a gameplay, just the way I was looking forward to seeing the original Vuna United merge and do some damage. I just had a feeling that they would be able to whip something up, because between them there are so many skills that I look forward to her game, because she's not obviously shackled to anyone, and that's going to be quite interesting.
Yes, I mean, for me, I think with Anesu, it's really interesting. Throughout the show, there's been certain times where we've seen these clips, like when Anesu went over to the other beach with Dino when they did the raid on the beach. You know, she was talking about Chappies, or two Chappies, making sure he's okay, asking for information to be shared with Chappies. It was this via Paul. She spoke to Paul and said, make sure that Chappies know I'm still with him, you know, and there was this alliance between Chappies and her early in the season that we saw with Pinty and them, which I always wonder, why did we see that? Because why was that important? You know, there's certain things about that, and now she talks about Chappies potentially having enough trust in her to send her to Immunity Island, which I found very interesting. I feel like she's also, and she's in with Sean, she's in with the girls. She's such a good social player that I think that Anesu is one of those people, if you were to play this game 100 times and you wipe their memory using the little Men in Black flashlight, she would be one of those people that would always find a way to get close to the end, because I think she's that's my personal opinion. I think she's one of the better players this season. I've been severely impressed by what she's been doing up until this point in the game. Now, ultimately, we're going to see here that the plan's going to work out. You did mention there that Kiran's going to win this challenge. I saw Lubuta tweeted online that the previous record was held by Aussie in America for 2.5 hours. Kiran did this for 3.5 hours, beating Aussie. But then I also saw that Matty Tarrant, who's one of the previous Australian Survivor players, said that Brooke in season 1 for Australian Survivor was up there for more than 7 hours. So that's pretty crazy for you, Riley, as one of those things where we recently spoke about Brooke just being one of the most physically dominant players and probably the most physically female dominant player we've ever seen in Survivor. But some pretty crazy numbers that are being put in there. Riley, if there was ever a challenge that you could sit out, would it be this one? Because to be honest, I wouldn't have wanted to do it at all.
Honestly, I'm quite a small body, and I have that sort of endurance that I do think those sort of challenges would be to my benefit. Although, I mean, just looking at how small those footholds are, I would be in so much pain after only a little amount of time. I couldn't sit up there for 7 hours like Brooke did, or even 3.5 hours like Kiran. And honestly, I was surprised that Kiran pulled out this challenge. He was probably one of the last people I was looking at to win the challenge. I thought, you know, it's going to benefit someone like Anesu or maybe someone like Nicole, you know, those people that are a lot smaller and, you know, don't have as much weight to carry. But in the end, Kiran winning and also coming up with that plan to send Tyson to Immunity Island and have him bequeath the idol by coming back to camp and being, you know, a member of the voting tribe. I think that was a brilliant plan devised by Kiran. And amazing to see him win the immunity challenge, because I was not expecting it at all. I thought Anesu had that for all intents and purposes. And even Chappies actually before the challenge, there was a lot surrounding him needing to win this immunity challenge. And him actually mentioning very cockily, I'm going to win, you know, 7 straight immunity challenges. This is, you know, my road to the end of the game begins here. You know, I've got to win 7 in a row. So it was interesting again seeing that sort of level of arrogance and cockiness and playing up to the television from Chappies as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've watched enough Survivor to know that that's never been done before. You know, some of the best players out there to have ever played the game have won 5 immunity challenges, and that's the record. So Rob Bentelli from your season, Meryl, he's a part of that club. There's quite a lot of them. I think it's like 6 or 7 players internationally that have all won 5 immunity challenges in a season. It's not easy to do. The first person ever to set that record was Colby in Australian Survivor season 2. Not Australian Survivor America, Australian out season 2. So it's a record that's been there since season 2 that's never been broken. So it's not an easy thing to do, but we love to see the confidence of him there going into it. But this is where it comes down to the pointy end now. And you know, Tyson gets to go to Immunity Island. He actually follows through by going back to the tribe, which immediately sends a little bit of shockwaves through the tribe, with quite a few people here that are not knowing if the vote is still going to go the way that it's supposed to be going. And one of the things that I noticed here, Meryl, is that the people who are onto this plan, the people who are very sort of nervous that things are not going to go the way that it's supposed to go, are Sean and Amy specifically. And I've been very high on Amy. I think she's a good player, but it sounds like no one wanted to listen to Sean and Amy about the fact that they might be in for a bit of a blindside here, because Anella, loved Anella throughout the season. I can see what Warada said about him being very confident in himself. She might have used a little bit harsher words than myself, but he's overconfident in that nothing is going to go against them here. And it's the same for Need and Marisha here. They're very confident about the plan. How difficult, Meryl, with a vote like this, where you've got 2 or 3 different plans going on, plus you've got 3 advantages, like an advantage and 2 immunity idols floating about, how difficult is it to get 4 or 5 people to stick together and actually vote in a way where it makes sense out there? Because it's easy for us to judge here as viewers of the show, but as someone that has played out there and with the malnutrition and everything, how tough does it get when you've got all these different things to consider?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be able to sleep with the amount of advantages that were going. I mean, we also had an island, but on the island, people had, like Jeffrey got a bag of jellies, and this one got that and that. And so there wasn't as many unknowns, let me say that, in the kind of pool of what we go to in tribal council. So just as a viewer, knowing that like all these people have these things, I would have been sitting in the shelter thinking that one went to, that person went. So maybe those people are all sitting with something in their pockets. Surely we must work up a contingency plan. And it's interesting you say about Amy and Sean. I might be incorrect with Amy, but Sean has been on the right side of the vote every single tribal, and he's been to flipping plenty tribals.
Yes.
He is able to play this fluid game. Amy hasn't really. She made one bad move, but it wasn't really a mistake. It was just the way, and yet again, she is able to camouflage and hide behind. In fact, when you were saying there was one other person, I was like, it's either Anesu or it's Amy, because I also see her as someone who is a bit of a dark horse, who is a bit of a sleeper to win. No one is expecting her, but she has had her finger on the proper pulses throughout the game, and so has Sean, and that is why he's able to stay on the right side of the boat. So I don't know. He's obviously a little bit more vocal, and he's triggered a lot easier at tribal council. Like when Marisha left, he said that is the kind of, and she gave her jacket to Nicole. He was like, that is the kind of person you voted out. And I mean, he at the one the tribal council with the 8 and watched them, he was quite visibly upset there. So I don't know if he's able to keep that under wraps for much longer. But between him and Amy, they don't have a lot of sway in the game, but they definitely have the right instincts. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, for me, I've been very lucky, thanks to Lurubota and the Mnet team. I've been able to do the exit interviews for this season, and I've always been talking. So again, for those who are listening, tomorrow, 24 hours from now, we will be releasing my exit interview with Marisha. I spoke to her yesterday, which was quite a good one. She gave us a lot of insights as well. One of the insights would be her relationship with Renee that Riley sort of spoke about earlier, and not knowing how close that relationship was throughout the game. Apparently, they were quite aligned from the start. The person I'm the most interested to talk to after this season is done is Sean, because I think Sean is a much better game player than what the edit has shown us, and I really feel devastated that we have not seen more of Sean on the show to talk through his thinking. I mean, there was the vote with Carla earlier in the season where Carla said her and Sean was really close and he protected her twice in that tribe. We didn't understand the dynamics there and how he played there. Him saying that he played very hard throughout the whole game coming into the merge and us not seeing it. I want to understand a bit more of how Sean's mind works in this game, and I'm really saddened by the fact that we didn't. I know you can only show a certain amount of people in an episode, but I really feel like we're missing out. Another person is Kiran. Obviously, Kiran, I don't think he's got any chance of winning the show, similar to how I don't think Sean's winning it. We can count them out based on the edit. Kiran does not get enough content, I think, to get to the end and win the show. And I feel like Kiran, he I feel like him and Tyson are working hand in hand together. So I kind of know Kiran's game via Tyson, because whatever Tyson does and whatever Tyson thinks, I think, and I could be wrong, Tyson and Kiran can come on here and prove me wrong when we do the exit interviews, but I feel like they're very in sync, and that whatever the one person does, the other one decides is the same, and they kind of move like one unit in the game, a very effective unit in the game. And some of the best duos we've seen in Survivor history have worked very successfully together, like your JTs and Stephen Fishback and those type of duos in the game. You could even say Sandra and Tony in this last Winners and War season working very closely together. I do feel saddened that we haven't seen more. Like, we've seen a little bit of Kiran's game. I don't know if he doesn't explain it as well to the camera maybe, and Tyson is just better at sort of giving us those confessionals to the camera. But sadly, we haven't seen that. But with Sean, we've seen absolutely nothing. Amy, I've been impressed with. Like you said, Meryl, she survived, similar to Sean, a lot of tribal councils. And I wanted to come back to you to talk about this as well, Meryl. This specific majority alliance here in original Zamba that ends up going to the tribal council here, they only went to 2 tribal councils before the merge. How much of a disadvantage is it in the game if you're not battle hardened and you're not used to being in tribal council and having Nico ask questions at you that you potentially don't want, with titles and things being played? How much of a disadvantage do you think it was for them coming into this merge?
I think that the game actually only happens at tribal, like the fire pot, or your thoughts and feelings and intuitions and instincts and gameplay properly comes out at tribal council. So you can go back to any survivor and you see the people that have lasted the longest, or the people that went to tribal early. We can go back to our season, Sahula, with properly their relationships were forged in those first 2 losses and the devastating weather that we had. And even someone like Jock in our season, who also went to many tribal councils, he just had a better feel for what was happening at tribal council. And or Denise is actually the best example ever.
Yes.
In that she's been to, she was on all the tribals, and she wins the game in the end. And just to know how people say to listen, to watch for the right cues, it builds up so much more confidence and gameplay in yourself than any other part of the game can. So, who was it in? What is her name now? Oh, Audrey. Where when she does a returning season, she's like, I just want to go to tribal. I just want to go to tribal. And then when she does end up going, she loses. It's that, because that is where your gameplay and your game is tested. So I do think that the fact that they've been winning, and I mean, a lot of them have played the whole game with each other. Renier, Marisha, Nicole, I'm now unsure who else, but they played the entirety of the game in kind of the lap of luxury within the game. It's not completely that. But
Anesu being the key here. Anesu being the key here, because Anesu is the person that they relied on very heavily in this episode.
Yes,
but Anesu never really had to prove her loyalty to them at any stage prior to the merge, because she went to Immunity Island. She was never in any danger. So I feel like a massive blind spot for them coming into this was Anesu, and I feel like there was a lot of trust placed on Anesu, which I could understand because they thought they pulled her in, and then the other person being Santoni, which I just don't think that they realized how much of a sporadic player Santoni was, and the fact that she can go wherever the wind blows her on the day. And I think that, that had a massive effect. Riley, I want to come back to you. You're my strategy guru on the panel here. Talk us through how difficult this move was to pull together, and the plan to get the fake plan, I guess, out there for Nicole being the person that the original Vunda members were going to target. What impressed you about this move here from everybody that was involved?
Well, I think the thing that stood out for me the most was Santoni's double agent skills. Obviously, as I said before, she's really someone that I think both tribes recognize that she's not, the most integrated member with either alliance. So she was the perfect person to go to both alliances and really, sway where things went. And by going to, I think she went to Sean, it was, and said, that the contingency plan is going to be Nicole. And really, I think it was more so Nicole that actually set the plan in motion, that she was going to be the one that was targeted there, because she was actually so paranoid that she really got it in her head that, okay, I'm the one that's going to go. And not possibly think, maybe 2 layers ahead, if Santoni is going to vote against us, is she really going to divulge the plan to us? And will it actually be someone else in our alliance, like a Rhaenyra or a Marisha, that's going to be the contingency plan? So I think Nicole did a lot of that in convincing herself that it was going to be her. And in the end, obviously, it turned out to be to her detriment, obviously, with Marisha going home in the end. So I think Santoni did a very good job in terms of telling Zumba what the vote was, and thinking that, you know, she could be wholly trusted by the Zumba Alliance and she was going to tell the truth to them completely. But in the end, obviously, she was telling them complete fibs, and the vote went the other way. But Zumba were convinced that it was going to go towards Nicole. So ultimately, they were completely blindsided in the end. So great play by Santoni, and also by Chappies for sort of directing her to go that way as well. Obviously, he wasn't, explicitly going towards Zumba and trying to plead his trust to them. But you recognise that Santoni and Wada were those two members that were sort of not in the know with the Vuna tribe, so they might flip over to Zumba, and utilising those guys to sort of go towards Zumba and try and shake things up a little bit and gain their trust and really try and steer the vote a certain way. So I think it was great play by both Santoni and Wada there.
Yes, and listen, I just want to continue to give credit for Tyson for actually following through, giving his, immunity necklace away to Chappies, and also the Island of Immunities immunity idol to Warda. He was completely exposed in this specific spot. And it was interesting because Sean, again, was the person here who said to Anela prior to the merge, he said, what we need to do is play your stealer vote on Tyson, make him nervous so he plays the idol on himself, because that wasn't what was discussed. So again, Sean, I'm really impressed by him. I just think that no one listened to him, and I'm wondering if Rhaenyra and Anela and Marisha just had too much of a control on that side, where people were just like, okay, we're going to listen, because Rhaenyra said, and we've given Rhaenyra credit. I think last week he was our player of the week. It was your player of the week, Riley, and Dirty Harry, who was our guest last week, it was his player of the week as well. So and I went Tyson that one, but Rhaenyra was the one who said, I'm pushing my agenda here. So I feel like he was really gung-ho on it just being a straightforward vote on Chappies, and sort of, it's really dangerous in this game when you make it obvious that you've got a clear target on Survivor. In the modern game of Survivor, it's a risk because there's too many advantages playing around, and that's why you should always try and hide your actual vote, like Tyson correctly did. He said to his team, we'll only once mention the name Marisha, and after this, it's Nicole from now on. That's the vote. So they had a dummy vote in place, which this team didn't have. So they were outplayed by Tyson and the rest of that team, who just had a better plan coming into this tribal council, which was quite impressive to see play out. And the other thing I wanted to say is, if you ever want to know, who the votes are going to go on and if Chappies is involved in a plan, Chappies celebrated, before Nicole actually played that idol on herself. When Nicole stood up with the idol, he was already celebrating. He could have given the whole game away if people were looking at him in the tribal council, because he was celebrating that Nicole was going to play the idol on herself. So I'm surprised people, knowing that Chappies can't contain himself, that they just don't look at him, because he doesn't have a poker face. He's going to give everything away at tribal council, and no one noticed that. So Meryl, looking at the game moving forward, obviously we lose Marisha in this specific spot. Do you think that there is hope for some of those players that are currently not in the original Vuna? So the players like Rhaenyra, Nicole, Sean, Anela, and those guys, do you think that there is a way out for them, and what would they have to do moving forward now that they're at a disadvantage in the game?
There's always a way out. there's so many, as we see now with all these advantages, there's so many other advantages that come into play, and now we know that these idols will come back into the game also. I just want to make a note about Rhaenyra, because before he played, he took a minute, he took a beat, and you could see he was desperately trying to read the situation, knowing that Survivor isn't always as simple as this. And I think that he was just pressed for time, or there was just, the moment was too big. But I think if he had taken that time, or he had been able to be calm enough, which is very difficult in a situation like that, he would have either not played the idol, or I don't know if he'd be able to play it correctly, but maybe he wouldn't have played it in that moment. You can see, like, he is trying to do something, but he just has no idea, and in the end he gives over to the relationship better. I think that Rhaenyra, he'll be able to do something. Amy as well, we're not sure about Amy. She hasn't been featuring. The others, I mean, we've seen how Anela has completely burnt his bridge with Warda, and therefore to the ground. And it's not so much from his side, it's actually from her side, like just exposing it utterly. And he's just trying to be this gentleman about it. And she's like, no. That has been quite entertaining to watch. But yeah, I don't discount or take anyone out of any kind of relationship building, especially because there are very fluid players in the game and no one is stuck. Chappies isn't stuck to. Chappies always just has a number. Like, that's how he's played his whole game. There's been one person that he trusts, and then that person has been voted out. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's just. And I mean, Renier he also like he noticed that, and he was able to use that to try and build a bridge with Chappies as well. So yeah, I'm really excited about the season. The gameplay is phenomenal, and I'm sure there's so much more coming. I don't think it will be easy for the winner at all. Like, there's just no obvious. Well, for me, I feel it isn't. But there isn't one person that I don't want to win at this point. You know, everyone, the way they're playing, it's like anyone can win this.
Yeah. So the one thing I really enjoy Tyson, and if Tyson wins, I'll be very happy for him, and it would be well deserved. But as a fan, I don't want this to be a predictable season. And similar to you, I thought Tyson was going to win a couple of weeks ago already, just based on the edit. So I'm hoping, Lerubota called this a very crazy season after the merge, and a lot of things happening. So I'm hoping it's not a straightforward road to the end, and that there is some, like, he's already had a lot of sort of diversity in getting to the end. In any case, like you said, he was at the bottom quite a few times. But I'm hoping that we continue to see that trend, and it's not too obvious who the winner is going to be moving forward. But my picks for the people that I think can still get there and potentially win it based on edit alone at this stage would be anybody between Tyson and Anesu. Renier could still be an underdog winner because we've seen a lot of his story up until this point. And then to a lesser extent, I'd put Santoni and Amy, and then maybe Chappies in there as well. Chappies is a very low one at this point because I feel like even if he does get to the end, he might not have the jury votes to get it, because it seems like there's a lot of animosity against him. But again, Survivor, South Africa season 6 come to mind. You just never know who's going to get to the end and who could still win it ultimately. Now, we also have this game here, Meryl, where we both picked our draft teams in the beginning of the season, which you'll see up here. I don't know if it's quite big up there on your screen, but we've got Riley there still with his players left. He's losing Marisha here. So, Riley, you are now moving down to 4 players in Nicole, Kiran, Tyson, and Warda in your team. And I've still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players. Is that right? Damn. It's been a bit of a whitewash.
Yeah.
But you've got
not
Tyson
for me at all.
You've got Tyson.
Tyson does have a lot of upside there, and I do hope that he can continue his strong streak. Although I do wonder, with this next episode having 2 tribal councils, it's going to be very unpredictable. If he gets in a minority alliance, I could worry for him. Having that target on his back for playing 2 idols at this point and playing both of them correctly. I hope it doesn't haunt him, because I don't want to lose any more players at this point. But I've got to remain wary at this point, because I've had the worst luck this season, obviously, with players like Dino and Teresa and now Marisha all going out relatively early. It's not looking good for me. But look, Chris, at this point, I mean, I think there are a lot of worthy winners on your side at the moment.
No, 100%. I mean, I'm happy with my team at this point. I still think Anesu, who was my preseason pick to win the game, I still think she could win the game. Plus, I just want it to come true. I want to be able to pick a preseason person and they actually win the show, because I've never ever done that before. I've been impressed with Amy's game throughout the season. I still think she's a very underrated player. She doesn't get a lot of screen time. Sean, a much bigger player than what the edit is giving him credit for. So like I said, I really enjoy, I want to talk to him at the end of the season to dive into his mind, to find out some of the things that he did on the show that we didn't see. And then Renier, I think, is the obvious person in my team with Anesu who has got a winner's edit for me at this point. But don't count Chappies and Santoni out. They've been in front of our faces the whole season. You can't count those 2 out as potentially 2 people that could win the show still. Now, this last section of the show, Meryl, we normally give our nomination for who we thought played the best game for the episode. And traditionally, we ask our guests to go first. But while I give you an opportunity to think about who you think played the best game, I might go first this time, and then we'll go to Meryl. And then, Riley, you can finish us off with who you think played the best game. My vote is not going to be a surprise for the 4th time in a row here. I think it is. I'm going to go for Tyson. I think, there's a lot of people that played different things and had different strategy going on here. He couldn't have done it without Santoni. He couldn't have done it without everything. But at the end of the day, this vote doesn't happen, unless Tyson plays his idol on Chappies correctly here. there is no ability for them to go back. It would have just been a normal 6 versus 6 in the specific vote. So I think based on that, based on the personal risk that he took and the calmness that he had in the moment to say, everybody knows about my idol, let's do this plan. He was the one articulating that they should make Nicole the dummy plan and then have Marisha as the actual target as well. I want to give the credit here to him. I'm sure Kiran and others had an input into this plan, but the show kind of showed us Tyson sort of being the person who sort of dominated, I guess, the strategy for this specific episode. Meryl, going to go to you next. Who do you think, and you don't have to follow me, you can have your own person here as well. Who do you think played the best game for you this episode?
Yeah, sure. It is undoubtedly Tyson, but with special mentions, obviously, to Kieran and Anesu for knowing, Anesu for knowing when to step down. I do think that she stepped down out of that challenge. Just for the sake of the plan to go smoothly. But definitely Tyson, absolutely.
Riley, you're the last person here. Who do you have as your player of the episode?
I don't think I've agreed with you once this season, Chris.
No.
And while I do acknowledge that Tyson played a great game in terms of playing that idol for Chappies today, I do want to give a special mention to Santoni. Her ability, as I mentioned earlier, just to weave between those different alliances and sort of play the double agent role. And as I said, telling Nicole that the vote was going to be pinned on her, I think that was a great move on her part that hasn't really been spoken about too much. Nicole being, similar to someone like Dino earlier in the season, just a very paranoid player. Whenever her name comes up, she wants the votes to go away from her as much as possible. So I think Santoni weaving between those two alliances was a great play on her part. And I think she still has a lot of room to move between both alliances if she really wants to change things up. So, look, I've got to give props to her. She's had a roller coaster ride of a season so far, but she's really positioning herself well to go deep in the game as someone that can, play on both sides, but also has that level of trust with each people without, completely burning bridges like someone like Wider did with Smash there.
100%. Meryl, do we see the Spy Shack come back later on in the season and play a bigger part? Do you think that that's going to be a big thing moving forward?
Yes, I do. I think Chappies has a lot more plans than what we think. So yes,
well, I'm here for it. I can't wait to see it. Meryl, it's been really great to have you, and we thank you for taking the time to jump on here on the podcast with us to talk about this season of Survivor South Africa. It's been great getting your inside knowledge as someone that has played the game before. Is there anything that you want to make people aware of, things that you're doing at the moment? Guys, if you haven't checked Meryl out on Inside Survivor, she is competing against Jark on there as well. Go check out Inside Survivor to see Meryl kick butt at this point against Jark on the power rankings for the season. And have you got your power rankings in for this week at all?
No, I actually haven't. I actually have to watch it twice because I get so caught up in everything that I don't look for the little clues in the story. So I always watch it again, probably on a Saturday or Sunday, and then from there, like also with the kids not around because it's a Thursday night. It's just everyone is shouting, everyone. So I still have to do that. And
do you have a friendly wager going on with Jark? Do you have a friendly wager with him at the moment?
No, actually, I should actually talk to him about that.
he might chicken out now since you're in the lead.
I think bragging rights is enough for me, actually. I enjoy that very much.
Anything else that you've got at the moment going on that you want to make people aware of that they can check you out on?
You can just find me on social media. I actually have 2 pages because people want you to curate who you are or whatever the heck it is. So I actually have 2 pages. There's one, the main one I use is Move with Meryl, and that's where I share a lot of just my movements and my Pilates and all those things. And then I have another one, Meryl Makes Music, where I sing, which is one of my big loves and passions.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I'll have to go check that out myself as well. Can you message me afterwards the link to that one so I can put it into the description as well, and I'll definitely check it out to follow you on the music side of things because I'm a big lover of music myself. So definitely want to see what you get up to. So Riley, going over to you, what do you have coming up on your YouTube channel Snuff next?
Yeah, well, we just hit the 1,000 subscriber milestone, so I'm working on a special video there. So that's something to keep an eye on. Other than that, How Poverty Shallow 1, Survivor Micronesia, I'll have a video coming up on that one tomorrow over on Snuffed.
Yeah, very exciting. And Meryl, we had recently on Snuffed the players that we thought would be the best players to play, the best international players that would probably be able to make a conversion over to the US show on Snuffed as well. And we, myself, Riley, and Analytical Strategy, who's another YouTuber as well, we had a couple of nominations, one South African player and one Aussie player each that we made for that as well. So sort of covering a little bit of the international Survivor there on Riley's channel as well.
Nice.
And we will be back on this channel on next week, Wednesday. It will be at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time to talk about the next 3 episodes of Australian Survivor, Brains versus Brawn. We've already covered episodes 1 to 3 this last week. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out on our channel. And we're also starting to get closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers on Reality Pop. We've just hit around 900 subscribers now. So very exciting times. Thank you for all the follows so far this season. Leave a comment on this video. Let us know what you think about the coverage so far and who you think are the most likely player to go all the way and win. And also leave a like. It does help us get recognized in the YouTube algorithms a little bit easier when people look for Survivor content. That's really it, guys. Thank you very much for coming on board to talk about the episode, and we will see you next week to talk about the next episode of Survivor South Africa Immunity Island. Bye.